Hello Libra, and welcome to your 2023 look ahead reading. My name is Sarah Mackenzie. I read as Sora for Sora Sky Messages by Sora. And we are going to be doing the bulk of your reading with the Wild Unknown Tarot deck. With this, we'll be looking at a card for your sign, a card for opportunities, one for obstacles, one for what you can control, and one for what you can't, as well as a card for every month to just kind of look at theme and what to be ready for. And then we will use the Nicoletta Ciccoli deck to grab a few themes for the year itself, as well as any clarifiers that we may need. As I shuffle, I would like to tell you about what is coming up for me in 2023. If you watch the channel, you know that I am a huge fan of Killer Pancake illustration and that we have worked together to create the Harmony Circle Tarot Journal. We are doing a bigger collaboration right now. This is her 6th or 7th deck, and I have been lucky enough to consult and collaborate on it. Haunted is a deck that uses folklore and history from this area and uses that to explore the topics that we find in the tarot and the way life cycles through the same themes often. The exciting part right now is we are going to be going to Kickstarter on January 10th. So if you look at the description, the very first thing you'll see is a link to the countdown and information. I would love if you would check it out and maybe share with anyone who might be interested. The more support we can get, the easier it will be to make a nice big run, so that more people have access to the deck, as most of hers so far have been limited edition, and while I am lucky enough to have several of them, the more we can make, the more people can have them. So thank you for that. I am going to start with a card for your sign. This is kind of where we're at right now. So as we look ahead, we'll see how that affects things. This is the Ace of Wands. This is the card of the creative spark, of finding your passion, of having that moment where you almost get that feeling of coming back to life, you know? So this is exciting. It's a time of exploration, a time of starting to figure out what really matters to you and what really motivates you. In terms of opportunities, we have the Emperor, some more fiery energy. He is about stepping into your confidence, being a leader. This isn't about necessarily bossing people around. This is a take charge, in that having the confidence and the wisdom and the experience means knowing that you can take anything on. This opportunity could be an opportunity for leadership. Absolutely could be something like a promotion or more responsibilities, but it is very much about having that confidence to move forward and know that you will be able to do whatever you need to do. For obstacles, we have the Empress. This is interesting because they are divine counterparts. You'll often hear them referred to as the divine masculine and the divine feminine. The way masculine and feminine work versus the way divine masculine and feminine work, and the way that that has been honestly westernized and changed, makes for that to not be the terms that I use a lot, but it is very interesting to see them together, especially with one as an opportunity and one as an obstacle. I mean, the Empress is creation herself. She goes so well with the Ace of Wands. She makes things, she loves things, and she nurtures them. She also leads in a way, but she's more of the setting an example kind of leader. This just very much feels like kind of an internal struggle between all the parts of yourself. going back to that masculine and feminine, this may very well be that the obstacle is to get past how you are perceived or how you perceive yourself. I do think it's interesting to have the duality here, and they're both beautiful trees. Like I said, they're divine counterparts. So it almost feels like what is getting in the way of you being able to step forward and be confident is that you feel you need to show up in one way, when really showing up as your full self is the best way to go. Card for what you can control. This is the Hanged Man. This is a card of perception, of growth, of shifting ideas. One of the ideas behind the card is essentially giving up various freedoms for knowledge. Sometimes it speaks to things like needless sacrifice, where you give and give and give to get something when really essentially you overpay. Throwing yourself on a sword for somebody that doesn't need you to. But in terms of what you can control, it very much feels like looking at things from different perspectives. You know, you can control whether or not you take into account other people's point of views, others' positions, just other aspects of a situation. It doesn't even have to be interpersonal. It can very much be just looking at things from a different side instead of being caught up in your own experiences, traumas, that sort of thing. It can be about allowing yourself to have as much information as possible. What you can't control. Oh, I like the parallels here too. This is the chrysalis. The butterfly's coming out. Whereas in the Hanged Man, it's the bat. But look at the parallels. That is so cool. This is the Eight of Swords. This is a card of feeling trapped. And it's interesting because we were just talking about allowing yourself to move beyond traumas. And the Eight of Swords is very much that feeling of being stuck. And usually when this card shows up, it says, but you're not. And that's interesting because they work so well together. Because essentially this says if something comes up and pulls you into something from the past that has hurt you or bothered you, the feeling that your body is going to experience is that idea of we are stuck here. It's that learned helplessness that I so often associate with this card. That idea of we're stuck, we're not going to get out. But to have that with the Hanged Man, which is that idea of like allowing yourself to see the possibilities, it's essentially asking you to kind of come above that, you know, allow those feelings in, but not let them hold you down. I hope that makes sense. Moving on to our cards for the months, starting with January, we have the Magician. The Magician asks you what you want your life to look like. Visualize it, get it really specific in your head, whether it's writing it down, meditating, have a very clear list, an idea, and then keep your eyes open for the opportunities. Sometimes these opportunities are presented as new things. Sometimes they are presented as stepping away from other things. The dichotomies suggested in the challenges in the beginning speak to making sure there is room for everything you want. Making sure that this back and forth between what you were showing the world and what you were showing yourself, making sure that is calmed down a bit so that you are able to embrace these things when they come. Because the thing is, if you, when it comes to the Magician, if you are like, I want this and I need to step into this energy, but I think I should be doing this, and they are different things, it'll be so much harder for you to focus and work towards one thing specifically. Moving to February, we have the Fool. Look at that. Blank slates, new beginnings. I love that right after the Magician, because it's like in January, you're going to sit down and you are going to make sure you are very clear on what you want. And then in February, start going towards it. So that's a lot of fun. In March, we have the Nine of Wands. I love this version of the Nine of Wands because the Nine is about grit and resilience, and it's exhausting and it is draining, but it takes you so much closer to your vision. And I love that it's steps here, because yes, they are climbing the mountain, but they are making steps in the mountain as they go along. You are creating your own path so you can get to exactly what you want. That was spoken about in the Ace of Wands and the Magician. You can get exactly where you want to do, but you have to put the pieces there because people have not done it in a way that clears out space for you. It is a lot of work. It is a lot to ask, but the key with the wands is the farther you get in them, the more likely you are to actually finish and get to your dreams, your visions. And you probably don't know a lot of people that have done that, but that is because this is when you hit this kind of suit, this kind of cycle, it matters more to you. You are more likely to do the work. And that piece of you is right up there. And I love it with the moon because it has the crescent moon of the Empress, which is that part about like, what part of yourself are you fighting that we were talking about? And the moon itself as a card is about shadow work. So in a lot of ways, this vision that you're working towards is also going to help you to really learn to admire every aspect of you. Moving on to April, we have the Mother or Queen of Pentacles. This is a card of having enough and knowing that you are enough. It can also be someone coming in for you, whether that's romantically or with an opportunity. I don't often put that out in these kind of readings because that's not really what we're focusing on. But since this is just kind of a theme for the month, that very well could be a connection that helps you get to a very stable, resourceful spot, which will also help you further that vision. In May, we have the Five of Pentacles. This is an interesting one because you will so often hear it as poverty and lack of resources. But for me, it's always been more about that concern. It's always been much more emotional than the rest of the suit. The fives really tend to turn their suits kind of on their head. This feels more like after having done all that work, maybe not being as far along as you would like and starting to worry about things like resources, especially sometimes if you've had an uptick and then or an offer and then things don't work out quite as well. It starts to feel like maybe that was a fluke. So to me, the five is always very emotional about worrying about things like resources or feeling left out in the cold. And that is kind of a natural step in the journey. The more you go towards something big, the more you find the little hiccups. And that's how we learn and grow. Success is a lot like healing. It is almost never linear. So allow yourself to have this. Allow yourself to be concerned. Feel free to tighten up your belt, whatever you need to do to get through the month. But then hopefully pick up again. June, we have the Father of Pentacles. I love that because there's like, yeah, there's that little setback, that little hiccup and that worry that we weren't actually getting where we thought we were going. And then the Father or King of Pentacles comes in to say, no, you'll get there. He is successful. He is the most evolved of his suit. So he has been through all of that. He's been where you were at with the 5. And he's also been at all the higher places. He has been through it all. And he has always found himself on top. And I love this after the 5 because it's like, yep, we let ourselves have a month of worry, a month of trying to change up how we were going to handle things. And now we are going to step into our power and make things a lot easier. And be a lot more successful because we're ready to be. Sorry, I hit the camera stand. For July, we have the Chariot. The Chariot is a card that reminds you that you cannot control everything, but that there are things you can control. Now this, maybe we can harken back to these, where we decide whether we're going to give in to our worry or we are going to let it teach us. But it can also be just that reminder that the best laid plans can still fall through, and that is not your fault. But these little turning points in life, the decisions that you make, but also the decisions that are made for you, those little pieces are the ones that make the biggest impact. And so here, I think it is less about the reminder of what we can control and what we can't, and more about something pivotal happening in July that sets you up for something bigger down the road. Whether that is bigger success, or just a very big change in your life. I think there may be a little step that you take or a little agreement that you make that seems like just a here and now kind of thing that turns out to be the turning point. Whether that is in a career or a relationship, it feels very career, but you know, this is a reading for an entire sign. So probably more likely for some of you, this is career, and for some of you, this is relationships, and different situations. The thing about a community reading, a reading for your sign, any of that, we are more than just our sun sign. We are more than just, you know, a person. We are individuals. So I do urge you to take whatever resonates, how it resonates, and leave the rest. And I urge you to do that in individual readings too, but we are focusing on this right now. Moving into August. We have the Hermit. That's your card. No, it's not. That's Virgo's card. Sorry. We are moving on to the Hermit. It is a card of introspection, reflection. It is a card of getting to know yourself, getting to like yourself. I love that he's got his little light at the top of his house and he's settling in. The Hermit isn't alone because he's isolated. The Hermit is alone because he likes himself. He likes where he is. I love this with the opportunities and obstacle pair, because it's like in August, you're going to settle in and really love all those pieces and really let yourself get to know yourself. One cool thing about the Hermit is really because he likes spending alone time, and real alone time, not time away from others, distracting himself, really sitting there and just vibing with himself. The great thing about that is that he's great in relationships. Because he is so secure in who he is, you don't get a lot of back and forth where they kind of melt into other people's personality. And that's not a judgment on the people who do. It's just that because he's so comfortable with himself, when he's interacting with other people, he's still that same person. So there's an authenticity that is just really easy to love, even if you would prefer that they take on some of your qualities or agree to things once in a while. There is this really nice feeling when you're around someone who is authentically their self. And so I love this for you. And I love watching this confidence build over these months. Moving on to September, we have the Six of Cups. That is a card of having a good foundation. It can also be a card of nostalgia. It is always kind of very, it is often related to the past and to fond memories, and particularly in this deck, the way you see this grow and you see how the rainbow's on the bottom, that speaks to letting those happy memories and letting those good feelings be your roots so that you can grow up into something bigger. I love that this is a very similar tree to the Emperor, because it says that in September, to me, there's going to be some peace made, whether that's some inner child healing or somebody from the past, or mending a relationship that helps with that structure, that foundation, so that you can step into those actions and step into that confidence and really embrace that Emperor energy that is that opportunity for you. October, we have the Mother of Swords, or the Queen of Swords. She is also very popular with the year ahead readings. She is a card of observation. I love that she's an owl here, because they are known to be wise, and they are known to give pieces of information both externally and intuitively, and the mothers, or the queens, are very intuitive. They are also very protective, being the mothers. And as the Mother of Swords is one for observation, this comes into a leaning into your intuition as to who you can and cannot trust, but also speaks to a lot of growth, because she has that water heart energy being the queen. She balances out that swords energy, which is kind of when we're in our heads. So this feels like coming to kind of a peace between your head and heart, but also, allowing yourself to be in your intuition instead of in your head. Going to November, we have the Son of Swords, or the Knight of Swords. This is a card of searching for the truth, which is a kind of a big theme here, right? There's so much of that. Which part of me am I? Who do I want to be? What am I listening to? My past or my present? This is very much a card that seeks alignment. And this little guy is even, like, direction-wise headed towards those roots. And the Hermit is really a card of reflection, looking back, looking for the answers within yourself instead of relying on other people to tell you who you are. Kind of love that the rose petal is falling on that, because it's almost like starting to have those concerns again, and then you're looking back and you're like, but I've gotten through that. I've gotten through everything. I'm amazing. And so let's dig deeper. Going into December, we have Strength. Now, Strength is less of a physical strength and more of a strength of character, strength of virtue, understanding that not everybody's morals and values are the same as yours. And so any sort of temptation that comes from someone else, instead of judging either of you, just going back to that, but who am I and what is right for me, and sticking to that. Not giving in to temptation because it may not bother someone else when they give in, but that may be because they don't see it the same way. This often comes up in things like work conflicts where somebody's cutting corners because they value getting things done quickly more than doing it correctly, whereas you may really want to do it the right way. Not getting pulled in just because they are in fact getting things done quicker is that kind of example. I love that he's got the rose in his mouth. He often does, because of or not in his mouth, but there is usually a rose because of the idea of the thorn in the paw. But I like it here just because it's very reminiscent of that 5. And it's like it is using those past concerns and how you've gotten through it before to pull in that strength and be like, maybe there's a quicker way, maybe there's an easier way, but I'm going to do it the better way because that is who I am. So a lot of inner stuff this year. A lot of inner work. That will be completely worth it as you learn so much about yourself and use that to really celebrate yourself. So as I shuffle the Nicoletta Ciccoli deck for our 3 cards, I'm going to thank you for liking and subscribing. If you would like a individual reading, please head over to my website. For a year ahead, I do recommend booking for an hour. I know these are all coming up in 20 and 30 minutes, but that is because they are for a whole sign and I don't have you in front of me. Not only would we have time to chat about each card or pull clarifiers other than whatever ones I wanted to, we'd also actually use probably a slightly longer spread. This isn't the one I usually use for a year ahead, but it was the one that made the most sense when I tried to get it down to zodiac signs instead of individual people. If there's not a time or date for remote or time, date, or place for people in Pittsburgh that works for you, just send me an email and I will be happy to figure it out for you. 4 themes. Starting with, well, that's the 5 of Cups. Now that's an interesting one because the 5 of Cups usually speaks to things like grief, but to me, this is more about letting go of concerns of being alone. This little bird loves this little girl so much that she has passed on her wings. There's no scarring. I don't think that she did that. It's more of a genetic thing, more of an inheritance thing. And with all of your stuff about looking past and being that in this deck, I do tend to look at the 5s as something that we need to let go of in order to move forward. This really feels like letting go of any sort of concern that as you make adjustments and as you start to present as your most authentic self, the people you love will disappear. I don't feel like that's true. And it's interesting because these are 2 different decks and 2 different pieces, but the 5 of Pentacles has a very similar shape and color to it. And so there is very much that idea of letting go of those ideas that you have to change who you are to matter to people. And, you know, if there is somebody that you lose because of that, you never really did matter and they should not have mattered as much to you. But I really feel like you'll find that actually people are proud of you and it brings you closer and does a lot more healing than just the inner child. Our second theme is the High Priestess. Yes, she is all up in her tower. That is the Snow Queen. But she is all about intuition. This is the only card in this deck where the crown is not on the head. It's floating above, more like the crown chakra, where you get that information coming in. We did talk about intuition with the Mother of Swords, but also reflection with the Hermit. She, again, is not isolated because she doesn't want to be around people. But unlike the Hermit, it is less about that reflection and more about the connection. This is more about paying attention to what's going on around you. And the Ace of Pentacles. New opportunities, all paths being open to you. This pattern is actually very much reflected in terms of like the Magician and the Father of Pentacles, the Nine of Wands. This is that if you want it, you can get it. You just got to take the steps. You have to decide your plan and head towards it. And you see here, all these birds are just flying around. They're settling in. They're not concerned. They have dropped all of those and they are just actively having fun in their flock. And you can do that too. So I am excited to see who you are becoming. Have a wonderful year.